everybody, and welcome back to the I Don't Know Running podcast, where we share our experiences that make running fun and sometimes not so fun. I'm Lewis, and I'm a self-admitted lazy ultra runner.
And I'm Mitch. I'm not sure if I'm recovering or tapering.
Both, I
think
guess.
I think it is.
You had Glass City a week ago. Yeah, a week ago.
Yeah.
A week
Not
ago.
even.
I mean, geez, you should be back in prime shape.
I am.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Geez, a week?
Ready to go for 2 next weekend.
What do you need? I mean, slacker. You didn't do 2 last weekend?
No, only 1.
You have two. You have 2 coming up.
Yeah, that came
in 1 week.
Last minute. Brian posed a question like,
And it's not even a marathon.
when's a 50K?
50K.
So we're gonna run Delaware and Pennsylvania next weekend.
What's the one in Pennsylvania? York.
York.
Is it which? And the 50K is Delaware.
Yeah. Yep.
So you'll do a 50K on Saturday and then a marathon on Sunday.
Yep.
Nothing to it.
We should be fine.
I mean, you should be signing up for the. What did you want to do, a 100K or a 100 miler?
I was thinking about a 100 miler, but I don't. It just depends on. We'll see how my back holds up.
If you get through those feeling good, you should be.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. So I am ready to start finally. So I had a lot of things happen, and we don't need to go into detail.
Right.
However, I had some major life changes happen this week, and they finally came to fruition. Like everything that I've been working on for a while, 6+ months.
So you should be ready to go with us next weekend.
Not quite that quick, but I am ready. I have finally found some rest and peace for things, and I can transition to the next stage of life. And now I'm ready. So all that to say, the last 6 months has been pretty weighty, and obviously Mitch and I have talked a lot about it. Just with why I was kind of paused on being able to move forward with some things, but that is done. We can move forward now, so I'm excited to get back into training. And
so I expect at least 5 miles today. I understand you're a little busy this morning trying to get ready and stuff, but it's nice out.
Well, the thing is,
before the rain.
I still do have a couple of things I'm dealing with. However, they're minor, but I have to get done with this. We obviously have this recording. We'll invite our guests in here in just a minute, and I have to still edit for tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And then we have to take off. We have to leave and go for Nicole's dad's 80th birthday.
Oh, my dad's 80th is on Wednesday.
Oh, really?
Yep.
They should have done something joint or something.
Yeah. They're both probably cheap, so it's probably perfect.
Yeah. We're taking off. We're jetting out as early as we can once I'm done with editing. Okay. So I might not be able to get today in.
I'll give you a pass today, but tomorrow you'll probably run in the rain then, right?
I would say anything past today, I really don't have a lot of excuse not to get out.
All right. So I am going to hold you to it from here on out.
All right. Well, hey, let's welcome in our guest in today's podcast. Today's podcast is about kidney donation, basically.
Yep.
And we have Trace.
Kidney donor athlete. So it's kidney donation and doing endurance sport.
That's true. It's not about just kidney donations. This is about being athletes and donating kidneys.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Tracy with Kidney Donor Athletes. Welcome, Tracy. She is the founder.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we have a donor. Well, Tracy is also a donor, but we also have another donor joining us, Pete. Welcome, Pete, to the podcast.
Hello, Mitch. Hi, Lewis.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
And Pete is a friend of mine. We've been friends for quite a while. I actually did my first double back-to-back marathon with Pete.
It was your first even.
Yeah, and he's the one that reached out to me and said, "Hey, this is I've been listening to the podcast. We should do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great idea."
Yes, I am glad you reached out, Pete, and talked about this. I think this is a tremendous, an amazing organization, and something that should definitely be talked about and go through the experiences. As we've mentioned, we like to talk to people, all categories of runners, and their experience with running. And with that, let's jump into, why you guys run. Tracy, why don't we start with you? And what got you involved with running? With what started your running? What started maybe the endurance side of things, where you start running marathons and things like that? Let's just jump into that. What got you involved with running?
All right. Well, it started really early. I think I was actually 6 years old the first time I had one of those lightning bolt moments about running.
Wow.
And it was because I was seeing my mom start a new hobby, which was running. And she would be, in maybe a grumpy mood most days, but then she would leave the house, come back all sweaty, and she'd be smiling. She'd have this ease about her. She'd be laughing. And day after day, as a kid, I was seeing this and I knew, like, what is it that she's doing? I want to do what my mom's doing. So I started asking as a 6-year-old, oh, you're running. Can I come with you? I like to run. And she said no over and over. But I kept asking because I kept seeing how different she was when she got home. So finally, there was a day in the summer, Northern Illinois. And she says, okay, fine, you can do my cool down with me, but you have to stand in this spot at the end of the driveway with the finger touching the mailbox. If you don't touch the mailbox to wander off, you can't come. So I remember everything about that, like the shoes on my feet, the way the wood of the post of the mailbox felt on my finger, and just this excitement looking for her coming back. And so we just ran down to the bottom of our hill and back. But I remember the feeling in my body, how I felt like independent for the first time. I felt powerful for the first time, like the way my lungs burned. I even remember the sound of the tips of my shoelaces hitting the ground. It's kind of amazing, but I remember it that clearly. So I knew in that moment that there was something there. And then my first team experience was middle school. So I couldn't wait till 7th grade to join. So excited.
Cross country or track?
Cross country.
Okay.
I was never interested in track.
Okay.
Not far enough.
Structured for my face.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did team stuff for only 3 years because I also learned I really don't like structure, being told what to do. You have to do this mile on this day, and it just wasn't really my thing. So after my freshman year, I lettered my freshman year just to do it. And then I just ran on my own ever since then. So it's been this free form, what am I interested in? My first half marathon was in 2003. And I was surprised how fun that was, the training for it, the race experience itself. Like I remember the moment I ran further than 10 miles for the first time. And it was this exhilarating independence I felt, and so strong in this autonomy. And it was just the feeling of it was so intoxicating. And at that point, I wasn't considering going further to marathon distance yet, because I just thought, oh, that's for other people. That's way too hard. Until someone told me that they thought that it was too hard for me to do. And I thought, okay, it's on now. So
challenge accepted.
Exactly. So then I started training for my first marathon, which was Chicago in 2004. And I just had it in my head it would be really hard, and I didn't know if I could do it. I knew I could kind of stumble my way through. It was never a question of could I finish, but it was how hard is this thing that I hear all these people say it's so hard and it ruins your body, your uterus is going to fall out, like all these things, that you hear. And so I took it super easy. I ran it with a really good friend, a best friend from high school. We then became college roommates, and one of our bonds of our friendship then was running. So we did it together and vowed to stay together. And she had kind of a rough day, nauseous and cramps and not the best. And then there's me, I'm just bopping around, the whole 26 miles. I had one of those Kodak disposable cameras, and I'll take a picture with someone in the crowd, eat a bagel and sip a coffee. And so it was by far the slowest time-wise marathon I've ever done. And I got done and we crossed the finish line, and I kind of felt a little weird about it because it never felt hard, because I was just screwing around for 26 miles. I wasn't racing or pushing myself, really, just supporting my friend and seeing Chicago and loving seeing the different areas of the city. And so I knew I wanted to do it more and continue to refine my approach, both with training and with race day, how I did that. So it was kind of like an experiment in execution and experience after that. And so I went on to do, I don't know, I don't keep track of stats or times or anything. So maybe 10 or 15 road marathons. I don't know. something like that. But then I got interested in the ultra world because of a friend that I met through doing the Ragnar relay. And so I had done a few of those, like the 12 person, then a 6 person, then I did a 3 person, and which was amazing. And I was really surprised by how much I can endure boredom, and still have a pretty good time and just keep a pretty even pace. And so then I did some 50Ks, and I did a 50-mile in Wisconsin before donation. And it was really fun to see. It's like to not catastrophize stuff, and like things would go wrong, or I'd get lost, or I'd have cramps, or I'd forget a drop bag, or I think I was going to throw up. But like I never had a drama with it. So it was like, well, like it'll shift after a while, So It was just, I enjoyed how easygoing I could be in really tough conditions. And so that is what got me doing that distance for quite a while.
Okay.
What 50 miles you do in Wisconsin?
North
The
Face?
North Face 50.
Yeah. That's the one I did. That's my, so I'm trying to run 50 states, and that was my Wisconsin, was the North Face 50 miler. I don't remember what year it was. It's been a while.
That's funny.
I don't remember my year either.
When
like
you
2006.
when you bring up like North or Wisconsin and a 50 miler, it's almost like, I don't even know what the percentage is, but like everybody says it's North Face. Like that's got to be the most popular one.
Yeah.
Well, out of all the North Face races, out of all the 50 milers, I think that one's the mildest with hills too, it seems like. And I think that's why I chose it. I was kind of, it was not supposed to be super hilly. It wasn't too bad, it seems like. There was a couple rollers.
Yeah, and I
in it,
believe
but
that one, the way it goes, because I've done Kettle Moraine, which is out there, and
the 100 though,
the 100 miler, and where you guys do the 50, I believe, where the 100 mile runs out to. I just, because basically Kettle Moraine is like this out and back, and the first out and back you do, we run out to where like a lot of the North Face 50 is ran, but then I think you guys go the other way or something like that.
I noticed, I remember it was a lot of sod running. Like it wasn't like necessarily trail in some of that. That was my experience, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But how did that
be more sand than I wanted? We still have like those like sandy kind of bogged down sections where you're trying to run on the edge and not roll an ankle because you're already tired kind of stuff.
Yeah. But you got through that, like you said, switching to the ultra world, you got through that. It wasn't no major drama. It was just because that was my first 50 at that one too.
And you're hooked on ultras now, or?
So now, so post donation, I did 2 more ultras, and really for the reason of showing what's possible as a donor. It really wasn't about me and what Tracy wants to do. It's like, I'm sure we'll get to that, but I felt a lot more purpose to do it in a responsible kind of public facing way, sharing the training and the race day and all that stuff, and like my blood work numbers afterwards and all that. But after that so I did 100K post donation, and there was something about just crossing, and I have goosebumps even telling you right now. There's something about when I crossed that finish line, I knew that I was done with that for a while, that I had nothing to prove to me or anyone else. And like, all I really wanted to do was just explore the experience of running solo, unstructured, treating it like an adventure, which is totally what I've done since then. I only run as long as I feel like, whenever I feel like it.
Oh.
I don't track anything. I don't even know where my Garmin is. I don't know the last time I wore it.
Oh, wow.
Like I don't. Yeah. So I have no desire to race, but I still love running, but I don't, like, I'm not running any of the same routes. I try and explore just different stuff every time. I don't ever run with anyone because I just want to be in my experience and enjoy it, and I like my own company out there. So I'm kind of doing this free form, whatever distance I want to do. And I've been doing shorter because that's what I've been feeling like doing, especially because like winter and stuff. And I just haven't wanted to run longer than, an hour or 2. But now I feel the itch coming back. So now that it's nice to hear in the Pacific Northwest and I'm moving to a place with all new trails for me to experience, like I'm sure I'll run longer this summer, but I don't know how long, and there won't be a race in there probably. So.
Oh.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. And we will definitely dive into a little more of that, especially the post donation. But let's, in the meantime, let's bring in Pete. And Pete, let's start with where you, what started you with ultra running? Or I'm sorry, not ultra running in general, and what got you into endurance running?
Well, good morning, Lewis and Mitch, and I want to congratulate you. I looked this up on Apple Podcasts, and y'all are the #1 running podcast hosted by guys who could be twins, okay, and sound almost exactly alike. When I'm listening to it, I know you've mentioned this, but I honestly cannot tell who's Mitch and who's Lewis.
That is hilarious. We had somebody else say that too.
Yeah.
Lewis.
But so congratulations on the pod. Mitch mentioned this to me. We were running Groundhog back in January, and Mitch was, I just sent him a picture of himself running it this morning, in fact.
I look
to
good.
Say hello and good morning to Mitch. And he did much, 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 much better than me. For reasons unrelated to kidney donation, my running has been in the trash lately. I've got a bad hamstring. But going back to the beginning, I started running very, very, very early. In fact, if you've seen the scene in Forrest Gump where they're all running at the end and following Forrest, I was a little kid in that, actually. I was 6, okay? And the deal was, it was about 19. I'm a little bit older than you guys, and it was probably about 75 if I'm somewhere in that ballpark, right? And there was disco music playing, and but my dad was a smoker, okay? And nobody ran, except Bill Rogers and Frank Shorter. And he and some other buddies in Saginaw here, I think, aspired to be like them, right? Like the OG distance runner guys. Nike had just invented the waffle trainer 1.0, right? Bill Bowerman was out there in Oregon, promoting Nike and running and everything. And that's how my dad said, I'll quit smoking these cigarettes, Pete, if you start, and we started running.
Oh, wow.
Together, my dad and I. And he ended up doing Boston a few times, New York City.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
A few sub threes. He had a few sub threes himself. My dad's name's Ray. And so that's what got me into it. Since then, ran all through high school, did cross country and track. And I will agree with Tracy that track is no fun for a distance runner. Cross country's way better. I coach cross country at my high school that I teach at now. I've been coaching cross country for going on 30 years. My own son was a state qualifier all 4 years. Shout out to
awesome.
Matt. He also has a 1:15 Grand Rapids PR in the half.
Oh my God!
So,
wow.
Yeah, and he still runs. We're gonna, like I was telling Mitch, we're gonna do Bayshore together this year coming up.
Is he gonna run with you?
Yeah, what's that?
Is he gonna run with you?
Oh no, he'll run with one of his buddies. I think he's actually gonna try maybe to BQ. He needs 3, I think. 3 hours.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I've been running my whole life and did crew at Michigan State in college, which is a total cardio sport, right? An endurance sport, long distance rowing, in other words. And, since I've got about not as many as Mitch marathons lifetime, but well over 100, including a few ultras. Road marathons still are my favorite. And I try to run most days of the week. It's been a challenge with this hamstring thing, but I'm doing, as much I can and learning. As you say, it's on your podcast, right? We don't know running because it changes every day, right?
Yeah.
I think if I was going to have a podcast like you guys, and, if this goes well, who knows, maybe I would call it, I know running, but I continue to do it anyway.
That's very good. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing that, Pete. Yeah, and you met Mitch. We kind of talked about this.
I was quick looking it up. I think it was close to 10 years ago when we did our first double, because we're both marathon maniacs.
And that's how you found Pete.
Right. I think I put something on one of the boards about trying to run 2 states in 2 days, and we hooked up and we traveled together because we're both from the same area. And then we've done multiple marathons since then. We went out to Washington, the state of Washington. We did the Tacoma City Marathon.
It was Maniac's 10th anniversary. Maniac's 10th anniversary in Tacoma.
So we did that together. I got him to do his first ultra, which was the Huff. I got him to do, and then we've done a couple other races together. We always see each other at Groundhog, it seems like. I'm a every year runner at Groundhog, and Pete's done quite a few of them.
I've done about 5 or 6 Groundhogs, not all of them like you, but I've done all the Grand Rapids. This is year 20 coming up, and I plan to be there, and I haven't missed one of those. And I do see Mitch most years at the October GRM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at the Grand Rapids Marathon. I think last year, I don't know if you saw me out there, I did my Team Triumph this past year with Grand Rapids Marathon. So
yeah.
I saw you. Absolutely. Yeah. And he did get me into the crazy world of ultras, but it never really stuck with me. I've done maybe 4 or 5, and including a couple trails. And probably that's what I ought to be doing because it kind of helps with a little bit with injury prevention. It's a little better, a little easier on the bod, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're forced in a way to slow down. I mean, you don't have to slow down, but you could be very reckless on the trails, and you're gonna fall down.
I fall down more on trail. That's my problem.
But yeah, I don't know, I'm forced to slow down, especially in an ultra. I mean, you have to manage the amount of power that you have for a given race, and a 100-yard dash is much different than a 50-mile run. So you stop caring about time so much too on the trails. I think it just, like Tracy was saying, maybe you still have your Garmin, but hey, maybe it doesn't work in the woods, or maybe you don't really care. I got one quick one. I did the Huff in 2021, and it can be frozen at that race. It's in Indiana in December. And this year, this 2021, it was muddy as you would not believe. And those ups and downs, it would take you minutes just to climb one little tiny hill. I didn't even have trail shoes, but it wouldn't have mattered. You've run on that in those conditions where it's so slick that you can't even, and it just took forever.
even when you're going downhill in that situation, you're going slow.
Yeah,
like it's just.
Mm-hmm. I did Indiana which is run on the same course as the Huff, and most of it's the same course, right? That's the Huff, right?
Yeah. It shares quite a bit of the course.
It rained. It started raining at like mile, I don't even know, like 20 to 30 or something like that, and it was already wet. And so, it was a slugfest for the remaining, 60, 70 miles. And it was when you went down here, you're just like, where am I going to fall? Because I'm going to fall. You couldn't stay upright going down these hills. So it was a mess. I know well how those trails can get at the Huff. So Pete is a donor. He has donated a kidney. And we will get back to that. But Tracy, let's jump back to you and just let's talk about what started Kidney Donor Athletes. Like, what in your life, what things transpired to lead you to want to start this organization and ultimately donate a kidney yourself?
Yeah, so that story actually starts when I was 12 years old. So that's when I first heard about living kidney donation from a classmate talking about over the summer, her uncle had donated his kidney to her cousin and they were both doing fine. And as soon as I heard it, that was another one of those lightning bolt moments, right? Immediately knew I'm going to do that someday. And so that was in the back of my mind. And that was also the same day that I joined middle school cross country. So it was a big day. And as years went by, I would see a news story or something like that about kidney donation and pause and think, is now the time? And it was actually always running that made me punt it, another few years down the road, because I couldn't imagine taking a break like that, even though I had had injuries enough where that would force me to take a break, but I wasn't ready to choose to take a break to donate a kidney and recover responsibly. And so it was 2016, I was running the Athens Marathon. And that year in particular was the most races I'd ever done, the most miles I'd ever covered, and the most fun I'd ever had. But I was exhausted by then. And it was during that, the first 11 miles is a steady incline up towards Athens. And I remember feeling like the bones in my feet are just sore, like this body's tired. And so in that moment, I'm looking out at the sea and I thought, okay, I'm ready to start the donation process. I can handle taking a break now. And so then I had vacation and I flew home and I contacted my local transplant center, which at that time I was in Madison, Wisconsin. So they have a phenomenal transplant center. And so I started that process, and I had no one that I had in mind to donate to, because I also was waiting to see, is there a family member or a friend that would need one? Because then I would very easily step up and do it, but I never knew anyone that needed one. So I wanted to donate to a stranger. And I started telling some people about what I was doing. And I'm pretty private, so no one knew, like for these decades, no one knew that I had this simmering in the back of my mind. So when I would tell someone, it was a shock to them. Meanwhile, I'd known this whole time I was going to do it. So the impression was that I was being impulsive and I wasn't really thinking. And, that was their assumption, not knowing I'd been planning to do this. And so I got a lot of grief from people about it, thinking I was being irresponsible, that I didn't know what I was doing, that I shouldn't do it. And people kept coming back to running because I would push them like, why do you think that? Why are you giving me this lovely unsolicited advice right now? And it always came back to running like, oh my gosh, Tracy, what would you do if you couldn't run? You probably can't run with one kidney. And I kept thinking how ridiculous this was, because these people, like, they were doctors. They didn't know anything, in my opinion. And so, again, in the spirit of wanting to prove people wrong, that drove a lot of my racing career when I was doing that. I just kept that in the back of my mind of like, okay, I am going to use my own body as an example that not only can you donate a kidney as an athlete, recover and go back to racing, but you can thrive and be competitive and really good with one kidney. You just have to be responsible. And so after my donation, it went very smoothly, completely textbook. My recipient was doing great. I got to meet her 9 months after the fact, which was awesome. And I decided to share my recovery pretty publicly, which I didn't really like posting on social. And I didn't like, I was a pretty private person, but I wanted to stretch myself to give people access to see what it's like firsthand from an endurance athlete who was competitive and had decent results, what it was like to recover. So I started just sharing on my personal Instagram, and I came up with the hashtag kidney donor athlete. It's like, what else are you going to call it? So that it started there. And within a week, people were sending me messages of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I finally found someone who's talking about this. Let's share what we're doing, what's working, what's not. And the first person to do that was a woman named Charlotte, who lives in New Zealand, who I just heard from again this morning. She donated within a couple of weeks of me. And so we have this really neat global friendship born out of kidney donation and being endurance athletes. And more people would find me and send me these private messages. And after a while, I thought, man, there's something here. There's all these people in private doing this really awesome thing that could support, my goal then was to support me like 100 other people. And so I thought that if I created a platform, that people would be willing to share their story on a platform, because I found what was holding a lot of people back, and what was really hard for me was I didn't want to come across as self-aggrandizing, like, look how great I am and look what I did. And a lot of people are afraid of being looked at that way. So they would just do all this stuff in private, and most people wouldn't even know that they donated. It's kind of bizarre, but I get it. And so I thought, if I make this thing and people share their story, it's for the platform. It's not about me. It's about kidney donor athletes. And so it was August 18th of 2018. I was sitting at a coffee shop in Bend, Oregon, about to fly home, which at that point home was Lakewood, Colorado. And I thought, I'm just going to do it. So I went on, I filed my articles of incorporation, and I applied for nonprofit status from the IRS and all that. And I just got it going, because I thought, well, if I can just find 50 people that are athletes and donors to just write up even a brief story with some pictures, and because I like building websites, I think it's fun, I'll just put it out there and we'll just see what happens. And so that's where it started. And it's it's mind blowing that it went global within like 3.5 years. There's now about, I think, 140 plus athlete features on there.
Wow.
A group of us climbed Kilimanjaro and summited on World Kidney Day last year. So 21 donors were in Tanzania to do that.
Wow.
Good Morning America. Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And could you talk about, so what is it that Kidney Donor Athletes does for a donor, and what does it do for the person receiving the kidney? So what does that look like? What's that process?
Yeah, so the organization is really designed to support living donors in terms of community, because it's a lot of people's donation process, especially if you're not donating to someone really close, like your husband or your mom or something. People get questioned and people think it's weird and they don't get it. So it can be a really alienating, lonely process. And so to me, what KDA really is, it's a community of people that, we have a really active, large private Facebook group that's only for donors and people going through the process. There's also a lot of like interaction on Instagram, on the website and things like that. But it's giving a platform to share what's possible as a donor. And we also share, people have complications or a hard time. We share all of them because we don't want it to just be perceived as, oh, it's super easy, because it's not easy for everybody. It is for most. But it's to give a place where people belong. And what also is kind of mind blowing to me is how much people identify with it. It's like they feel a part of something based on it. It's like they'll go out and they'll wear the t-shirt in a race and people will ask them about it. And then they will come back and share the story in our private Facebook group or on their own social media. And people wear this stuff all over the place. And it's amazing. This little logo that I got for free from someone that I would just messaged, they do artwork for pro wrestlers online. They just did it for free because I thought it was cool,
Oh, wow.
So it gives them community for sure. I also built a mentoring program. So if people are curious about donating, but they want a very specific kind of mentor, we can pair a mentor based on physical location, transplant center, and or athletic specialty. I track all of that. So if you want to know, like a kidney donor hockey player in Denver, I got one for you. It's that specialized.
Gotcha.
So that is for the donors. And in terms of supporting recipients, we don't directly focus on that. But what's really cool is that people that are looking for a kidney will often share our stories to show, hey, it's okay to be a living donor. Look what these other people are doing. So a lot of people looking for kidneys rely on our content to share in hopes of finding a donor. So that was something I never intended, which is a really neat, innovative way that they're using what we put out there.
Gotcha. So you're helping the donors walk through the process of what this looks like from the very beginning stages through the donation process and the post-donation process.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
What I find interesting is that you sought it out. Like most stories I've heard in the past, it's somebody like, hey, I got my mom or my sister needs a kidney and I'm a match and I'm going to do this thing. But you sought it out. You're the one that started it and just said, I'm going to donate a kidney. I don't care who it's for. I find that amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a really strong feeling that I don't think I could have ignored if I wanted to. And just the way it played out and who it went to. And I did a donor chain. So actually 4 people received kidneys on the same day because of my one. So the way that worked is my kidney flew from Madison to Denver, went into my recipient, Diana. That same day, her husband donated on her behalf because he was approved to donate, but he didn't match her. So he said, okay, I'll donate as long as my wife gets one. So pairs like that are formed all the time.
Oh, wow.
So then he donated, his kidney flew to Oakland to a man. That same day, that man's daughter donated on his behalf and hers flew, I think, to Philadelphia, but I could be wrong. And then there was another stop in there.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's incredible. Yeah, because if my wife needs a kidney and I don't match, I mean, that is amazing. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, to me, once I learned about that, I mean, that's truly what I consider the most effective altruism you could do. And really, all I was doing was being in good shape, and I took a nap for 4 hours, and then I got a month off of work. And, I mean, for what I did really is very little considering the outcome of 4 other people and everyone that they know and that they come in contact with, like just those ripples of that. I mean, you can't even think about the magnitude of that.
Yeah, and I'd like to dive into that a little bit, but first I'd like to bring Pete back and just talk to Pete a little bit about his decision to go to, to want to donate a kidney, number one. But then also, Pete, I'd love you to just share what was your process like and your post process like, because obviously that is a major thing that athletes would want to hear, because I so selfishly, a little bit of vulnerability here. One of the things like my wife and I talk about is, donating blood. And I'm like, well, geez, I remember back in high school, we had a friend, Bill. He donated blood, and man, his time slowed way down. And and so you think of the selfish side of things. You're like, well, I have a race coming up. I don't want to do this. And here you guys are donating kidneys. And it's like, oh man, a little bit of check myself here. So Pete, why don't you just share your experience, what led you to wanting to donate a kidney, and then also your process of this?
Okay, sure. Mine's a little different than Tracy's in that I knew my recipient. Okay. Yeah. So this man, how it all came about was that I'm teaching at my school is called Nouvelle Catholic Central, and he is a parent of some students, okay, and also uncle of a current student that I have in class right now, in fact. And so, but I didn't know him that well, right? I had met him a few times kind of thing. There was a blurb that ran in our school announcements, actually, right, about this, right, saying that he is in need, and if you want to get tested, here's how you do it. Okay, so I went and did the blood test. This was in 2016 through Henry Ford Hospital, which is in Detroit, which their transplant center is I got to say it is. I've not been to other ones, but Tracy, I know you spoke highly of yours. I can't say enough good things about Henry Ford Transplant Center. My sister ended up donating part of her liver there too. So they just are incredible the way they treat donors. Okay, so it's 2016. I go get my blood tested. I send it off in FedEx. It comes back and everything. And it's like, whoa, you match. Okay, it's not in any way as difficult to match somebody as it is for something. My understanding is like bone marrow is a lot more complicated. Main thing is blood type's got to match, and there's some other pointers that make you a better match or not as great a match. And we matched up pretty well. This fellow's name happens to be Peter, same name as me. And so then I had to wait. And basically because he was diabetic and he wasn't on dialysis yet, I don't think he was, but the recipient has to decline, their kidney function has to decline to such a point as that they are now crucial where they're going to have to go on dialysis. That's when the transplant needs to be made. Okay. I mean, obviously you all know somebody on dialysis, right? And they can go that way for years, but their quality of life isn't nearly as good as if they're lucky enough to get a kidney transplant. And live donor ones I've learned too, because I started reading for 2 years. So I had to wait like from 2016 to 2018. And I read and read and read. Every day I was on some website reading about donation. And I think during that time, I probably discovered Kidney Donor Athletes too, right? And because that was going, and I just read about the pros and cons and what it would be like after. I wanted to know everything I possibly could. So I got a education beyond belief about this whole process, right? And I was very confident, like Tracy said, that being in good shape, that absolutely matters a lot, right? And so long about, or I don't know, April, I kept occasionally every few months, I'd send a message to Henry Ford and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Because I never contacted him directly, right? I never reached out to him. In fact, we never talked about it till a couple days before we both went down to the hospital. We never said one word about it to each other, right?
Oh, wow.
And then the next time I saw him was after, like Tracy said, when I woke up. and we were on the same floor, about 4 rooms apart, and they want to get you up walking ASAP, right? That's like really important, right, Tracy? And so I was within hours of when I woke up from anesthesia. Pain, I mean, it's not comfortable, but I walked down the hall and I saw him there, and theirs is a lot rougher than what we have to go through. Mine was laparoscopic. They put 2 holes. They cut a little hole kind of in front of your bladder there, and they put 2 other holes in for the instruments, for the robotic camera and the other instruments that they take out your kidney. And your kidney comes out through a little tiny hole, and then it goes into him. But his is open. It has to be like, you can't do it laparoscopically. So his recovery, my understanding was, it was a lot more difficult. But he is doing great to this day. His kidney function, we talk every now and then. He's an amazing man. He lives here in Saginaw, and we see each other every now and then. And he always reports to me that his kidney function is 100% awesome, which makes me feel good, right? And I'm so happy. Like Tracy said, mine wasn't a chain, but it was a directed donation. Hers was altruistic, which I totally amazing, commend you for that. I just wanted to help one person because I knew I was healthy enough to do it, and it likely would not affect the thing I love to do, which is run, right? And my family life and everything else. So, like I said, through our Catholic community here in Saginaw, that's how it happened for me. Recovery, I just want to share with you, because I do keep stats, and I have a little spreadsheet here. Awesome. What happened was in 2018, I was already, I think God was involved in this, because I never had knee problems. And then all of a sudden I ran Bayshore that May in 2018, and I donated in July. And it was one of my crappiest marathons ever, right? My time was bad. And it was because I had this right knee pain. And I've not had right knee pain or any knee pain after or before that at all. It's really bizarre. I have other problems with, like we all do with running, but it's hard on your body, but not knee pain. So I bought this recumbent bike, a used Nautilus recumbent bike, and I started cranking on that thing and kind of not running. So like in June of 2018, I only ran 53 miles. In July, which was my donation month, I ran, and it probably was just pathetic, slow running, of like 7 miles. In August, the month after donation, I donated on July 13th, 2018. And in August, I ran 0 miles, but I was doing that bike, I was cranking on that recumbent. And then in back by August, I had 42, September, 82, October, which I ran the GRM, and it was slow, but I still did it under 5, and I had 106 miles for that month, for October, and then it went up from there. And by 2020, I was back over 2,500 miles for the year. So in 2019, I had 1,800. I'm just happen to be looking at it right now. But you got to take a few weeks off. I switched to walking and biking and things like that. But then I think my first run was, I don't know. It was a matter of weeks. It was a matter of weeks.
But you ran a marathon 3 months, roughly 3 months after.
Yep. July, August, September. That's correct. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. So
under 5. Yeah. I have a picture of me and Don Kern. Cause he, like Mitch said, he printed part of my story that's on the KDA website in his, monthly or weekly newsletter there. And I have a picture of us at the starting line there, me and Don. And because he was really, really supportive and wanted to get the story out too. And I had a few people contact me after that too, who either had donated or were interested. So promoting it that way, especially what Tracy does, I can't even imagine how many lives and how many people she may have inspired through that website, right? And so, probably after this, Lewis and Mitch are going to go read all those stories, right? And we're gonna get a kidney out of you guys too, right?
Always working it, man.
Go right at it.
But I got one more thing. The chain thing, Tracy. She's gonna know the answer to this. There's such a thing as a world record for the most people that did a chain together, and like yours was 4, but like somebody deliberately set out to like, and it's at least 10, isn't it?
Well, so Brian Glennon, he's a part of the kidney donor athlete community. He's a mountain biker out in New Jersey. His chain had 30 plus recipients.
Whoa.
So like 50 something. So he was on Good Morning America and got to meet some of the people in his chain maybe 3 years ago. So that's the longest one I've heard of.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there might be a longer one now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they can, like she said, they take your kidney out, they put it on ice. It's in a special cooler, right? And it gets a special place on the plane. I think it gets to sit next to the pilot or something like that. And it's like on the fastest possible flight to wherever it needs to go. And then to me, it is just miraculous. When I learned about laparoscopic surgery and robotic surgery, which mine was robotic, I was just, this is so amazing that we have this technology that we can do this. And honestly, relatively, I took high dose Tylenol, and that's it, you know, for a couple of days. We're not allowed to, because ibuprofen, you know, runner's best friend, right, is processed through your kidneys forever. We're not allowed to take ibuprofen. That's one of the sacrifices, I got to say, is for the rest of your life, no more Advil.
Gotcha. So I just did a quick search here, and it says it's called Chain 357. Chain 357 began with a donor at University of Minnesota Medical Center who wanted to donate a kidney to a stranger, and ended at UW Health Transplant Program in Wisconsin. The final recipient was a standard, I don't know, maybe you could explain what this is, but a standard voucher patient whose donor donated in advance on August 5th of 2014. So this, I believe, is 350. I mean, is it three? Maybe I am reading it wrong, but I believe it's 357. But that would be insane.
Whoa!
So maybe there's some more reading.
That's a quick search, right?
Yeah.
I think what that. My guess is
maybe it has to do with the airplane that you were talking about, the 357, because it says the chain is 35. So maybe that is similar to what you were talking about. But anyway, so Pete, let's jump into I would, and then we'll jump back to Tracy. But Pete, what I'd like to ask is, you mentioned the Advil, the ibuprofen thing. You ran a marathon 3 months after, but what was your post recovery? And you briefly brushed on it, but let's just talk about that a little bit more. What have you done since that you have said, okay, yeah, I used to be able to do a marathon in this. Has this really affected you, today? Other than the ibuprofen thing, what really has that donation really affected you today to go out and run a marathon?
Short answer is I don't think about it at all. You know, it's like nothing really. It really had no negative effects on my health. Now, for 2 years post donation, at least in Henry Ford's case, which I understand is pretty much standard in the industry, right? They will track you. In other words, you have to go have your blood drawn, and they're looking at your creatinine levels, okay? Because they don't want them to get too high. If, you know, my remaining kidney or Tracy's remaining kidney were to start spilling creatinine into your bloodstream, into your urine, excuse me, then that would be a warning sign, okay? So for 2 years, they would track you. And mine, honestly, it did go up compared to the baseline level before. And I think that's kind of normal, though. I remember the nurse was worried, and the other thing is running or it could be weightlifting, any physical activity breaks down muscle, which gets into your urine and it shows up. It will make that like if you went and ran a marathon, I think, and got tested, this test I'm talking about, this urine test, you would have a pretty high level of creatinine in your pee.
Gotcha.
The next day, and probably for a couple days. So this one nurse was telling me, you really, and she didn't tell me to knock off running, but she strongly suggested that I might want to back off and stuff, but I didn't. I mean, hydration becomes all the more important. I mean, we all know it, right? That's the one thing I would say is more so than before is you watch the color of your pee, right? And you just make sure that you're disciplined about consuming enough water, which we all know we ought to do anyway. Yeah. But now it's become a religious ritual for me to like make sure I drink so much water every day, running days or non-running days. It's super important to keep hydrated when you just have the one kidney. Other than that, I would say my problems are totally age related, not related to, it's just getting older and running becomes harder. And like I said, I have this stupid high hamstring problem on my left leg. And I don't know if you ever had that. It is a nagging injury. It just will not go away. It would go away if I stopped running, but yeah.
See, we just talked to somebody a couple weeks ago that says no, he doesn't want you to stop running. He would get you back out there. So are you seeing a physical therapist or somebody that can help you with that or not?
Right.
No, of course not.
Really
You're a typical runner.
The answer is no.
Yeah. Do you want to, Mitch? I've heard you guys talk about this on the podcast about why runners don't bother, because unless your doctor's a runner, right, which you'd be lucky, they may. The one guy you guys had on, who was it? He was
Terrence, PT Sports Pro.
Right. And I would definitely trust him, right? I would want to go talk to him because he knows that psychos like us are not going to stop running.
Exactly.
Okay. And you gotta do something that's going to get them their daily cardio fix. And yes, of course I try biking but come on, there's no substitute, right?
You are normal. You're a typical runner.
Yeah.
I just won't go because they won't tell me there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better. The hamstring actually is a lot better. What happened was last year I was doing, Laz Lake, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he has I started during COVID doing his Race Across Tennessee virtual.
And
I kept doing that every year. So last year in the early months of the year, like May, I had 256. And that's what did it right there. 256 miles is way more than a normal month for me. And that's when I blew it out. And then it just went way down. I only had 1,200 last year total. And I'm on the rebound though. I'm making it work and I'm figuring it out. And I don't know if massage would help or, not running would help, but again,
not necessarily. You just got to do it right. What I wanted to get to though too is the support of your family. So when you told your wife that you're going to donate a kidney, was she like, "Are you crazy?" Or what? How was the support?
Yeah. So I got to thank them. It's in my write up too, which if you guys want to link it or something, some of the
we'll
Tracy
have that
wrote
linked.
her story up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. But yeah, my wife's name is Kathy, and hi, honey. And she was supportive 100% of the way. She never questioned it. And in fact, I'll always remember when I came home from Henry Ford, which was 2 days later. Okay. I had a little complication in that this, Tracy, when they put the catheter in. So, cause you can't go to the bathroom normal. It wasn't inserted right. So I could not get urine out of me. Okay. So that made me stay in the hospital like an extra day. And that was by far the most painful part, is having your bladder full, right? And the pee wouldn't come out. So they finally had to reinsert it. They figured out what it was. And then once I could go, then I could go home. But once I got home, they set up a bed for me on the first floor because I couldn't do stairs. My bedroom's upstairs. And I had for a week or two, maybe, I had my own little bedroom in the living room on the first floor there. And they treated me really, really nice. Okay. I have 4 children, Matt, Joe, Sam, and Grace, and Kathy, and they just gave me a lot of love and support. And that's what I needed at that time. And but I never doubted it for a second. And I'm so happy that I did this. And I unfortunately can only do it once, right, Tracy?
Exactly.
Can't give the other one. So
yeah.
Yeah. So Tracy, let's jump back into your post donation and your recovery and what that looks like, and just your experience having walked through that process. And obviously, we know what it led to and everything. But let's just talk about your donation, the process, and post recovery and all that.
Okay. Yeah, everything with the process itself for the surgery went smoothly, to be expected. I'd never had surgery before. I wasn't really a fan of like needles. I don't even have a tattoo. I didn't get my ears pierced till I was like 35. So there's all of this stuff was new, and all the testing was really new. And so the day of surgery, I came out from anesthesia, and like Pete said, they really want you to walk right away because your recovery will be faster if you can just get up and get moving around and like do a lap on your surgical floor. And I couldn't get up. Like I vaguely remember the nurses trying multiple times. So there'd be a nurse on each side and someone in front of me. And my normal brain would kick in of like, of course I can walk, watch me, and I would go and my legs would just give out. But I'd never had anesthesia. So apparently I'm pretty sensitive to different like meds and things anyway. And so it wasn't actually till the next day that I could even get up and walk. But I remember the feeling of collapsing and being so grateful that there were enough people to catch me every time they tried. So that was a little slow, but still I was only in the hospital for 2 nights. And I was really surprised how exhausted I was, because you're supposed to get up and walk, so I lived in just like this nice suburban Wisconsin neighborhood, and just walking around the block. I mean, for a few days, I wasn't able to walk and hold a conversation. If I was with my support person and I had to talk, I had to stop and stand and answer the question and then keep going because I would get winded just shuffling around. I had to have a chair in my bathroom because if I were to take a shower or something, I couldn't stand the whole time, especially if I was washing my hair. I'd have to sit down partway through. And that kind of tiredness for me lasted, maybe 3 weeks even. I would be out, and I was driving by then because I was off painkillers really quickly. But I would be out and I was so keenly aware of where's the next bench, or if I was out like walking in the woods, where's the next tree stump, where's the next thing that I could just sit on. And I'd never been aware of things like that before in my whole life because I just Energizer Bunny Tracy. Like it never even occurred to me. But I would have to stop and sit all the time. I would always have a book with me too because I was really concerned about looking normal. I didn't want anyone to think something was wrong. So I would just like sit down wherever and just hold a book, not even reading it, just to look like a normal person because I felt so unlike myself. I'd never experienced that. And I was able to get back to doing, stationary bike. I was doing pretty quickly, really light weights, just to feel like my old self. And honestly, the hardest part about recovery for me is that I had kind of a mini identity crisis where, I was so identified with running and I was so identified with being this really high achieving, productive employee. And so I had a dark couple of weeks in there where I just thought like, if I'm not working out and if I'm not contributing and being Susie Worker bee over here, who am I actually? And that was really difficult. And I'm really grateful for it at the same time because specifically with running, I was so identified with running that, prior to that, any injury, any break I would need to take from running, I would just kind of lose it. Because that's who I thought I was and only what I was. And that is not my experience with myself now having gone through that, like embracing being much more multifaceted. And I have a lot looser grip on even being associated with running because it's just fun and it's an adventure now. And I have a lot of respect and reverence for it. It's not self-defining like it used to be. And I don't know if I would have gotten there if it wasn't for that dark period after donation, which is pretty interesting. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I can speak for myself and just say there are things in my life that I have done specifically because I felt like I had my identity a little bit too connected to something. And I have felt that with running a little bit, and where it wasn't necessarily that I had to change it. It just, I had to change my mental, perception of why do I run? Is it to impress somebody? Is it to impress people? Is it, do I get some self-gratification from, oh, look, Lewis did this? And it's, obviously you can tie social media to all of that. And I checked out from social media several years ago, basically, just so I would not be tempted with like the look at me kind of a feeling. Now, I'm not saying anybody, I'm not saying that if you post to social media, you are doing that. I'm just saying for me, I had to keep myself in check. And so I decided I don't want to do that. So anyway, so for you, it sounds like other than a little bit of being exhausted for a few weeks, you started to naturally transition back and you are back. And again, the ibuprofen thing, Advil thing, you have to just stay away from that. Other than that, you're back to doing the running you want to do. And I do want to ask this question because I know there are people out there that will hear this interview or think of doing this and they'll go, yeah, but what will happen to my 3 hour and 30-minute marathon that I can do all day long? Can I do that 3 hour and 30-minute marathon again?
Yeah, you absolutely can. I actually became a better athlete post-donation, and I didn't expect that, but it was the outcome because one of the most fabulous things to come out of donation for me is that I have so much more respect for my body. I have reverence for what it can do. The fact that you can take an organ out that is half of your filtration system and give it away and recover, and your remaining kidney grows in size to make up for the function it doesn't have from the other one. I mean, I also had to be much more in tune with my body because I couldn't just mask it with ibuprofen. I used to run with ibuprofen all the time. And actually now I don't do any pharmaceutical. I don't even do Tylenol, nothing. I just pay attention to what my body's doing. But being more hydrated, because I also used to chronically underhydrate because I didn't want to take the time to stop and pee. So the fact that I'm hydrated, I'm paying attention to my body, it's no longer a bossing my body around, but a true partnership with what your physiology can do for you. I PR'd in the 50 mile when I did it, running at altitude. I was in Colorado and on a technical course. So compared to the 50 miler in Wisconsin, like if I would have done the same course, I would have blown that out of the water. But, to PR doing that, to be able to do 100K, like it was flawlessly executed. It was a phenomenal race. Like I'm a better athlete with one kidney. And Pete, I'd be curious what you have to say about that too, if people worry that their performance would drop post-donation.
Yeah. Right. I would agree. I don't think that, you can't go back and, redo it or whatever, but would I have run more marathons or faster marathons or any distance race or any amount of miles if I hadn't donated this kidney? No. And I also agree with you 100% that it probably makes you overall healthier because, when you get that physical, when you go before in 2018 for me, they call it the world's greatest physical workover that you're ever going to have in your life. Okay. They check every single vital statistic about your body before you go and get this kidney taken out. Okay. And I don't even know all the things, but the data and the report that they get back on you, there's no way they're going to let you donate if you're not in very, very, very good health. Right. And then when you learn all that stuff too, it just, makes you a overall more health conscious person. I don't know any serious runners who aren't health conscious people. Right. They may eat junk food and stuff. Right, Mitch? But,
oh, wow.
Ooh,
but
I got called out. I do eat a lot of junk food.
I've listened to your show. Okay.
We all have our faults.
I like pie. I do like pie.
It's made me, that's what it was. Pie. Right. There's nothing wrong with pie, Mitch. It's okay.
It's got fruit in it.
It's a fruit.
But right. Have I consumed less, alcohol or tried to improve my diet? Yeah, probably some. Right. But performance wise, no negative effect. Again, to repeat, it's totally age related for me. Unfortunately, I've done about 20 total marathons since donation, something like that. I just ran an 8K last Saturday, and for me, it went super well. I ran an 8:05 pace. For me these days, that was pretty fast. But I wasn't even speed training or anything, like I say. And so, yeah, I noticed no negative effect on performance at all. None.
That's great to hear, because I know inevitably that is something people think about. I mean,
I think about it.
Yeah, as you train and you strive for certain goals, there's a tension between wanting to do something really good, like donating a kidney, and how will this affect my performance at my next Ironman or whatever. And so it is good to hear that. And I'm sure on the Kidney Donor Athletes website, you'll read a lot of those stories. There are loads and loads of stories on there from people like Pete and Tracy, who have donated a kidney and shared their story about how did it go and how are they doing now and all of that. So thank you guys for sharing that. I'd love to just ask something that we do like to ask is, what's on your guys' radar? What do you have coming up? Do you have, Pete, what's your next marathon that you have coming up? And Tracy, likewise, I know that you're not necessarily tied to racing, but are there some goals on your guys' forecast that you have coming up?
Go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead.
So what I have on tap for running this year is purely experiential. I'm moving to a different part of Oregon, so I'm going to be just west of the Cascades, about 45, 50 minutes east of Eugene. And so I get whole new trail systems to explore. Waldo Lake is over there, all these amazing mountain lakes, Odell Lake, with great trail systems around them all. So I want to cover a ton of miles, have a blast, bring extra food and water. I'm guaranteed to get lost and just have so much fun exploring a new place. And however many miles that is, I'm not sure, but I am itching to go longer. Like, I kind of miss those Saturdays where you're out there for 5, 6, 7 hours, mostly running, some, just stopping and looking at a beautiful view from a peak and then continuing on. So that's what my year has in store for running. Cool. Pete?
Yeah, congratulations on your move to Oregon, by the way. And that sounds awesome. I mean, there's probably no better running country, around. That's like where Prefontaine ran out there and everything. That's running country for sure. So for me, it's next up is Bayshore. My son and I and one of his friends, we're going to run it. I mean, I'm not going to run it with them. He's much, much faster than I am. I would really I think one of my things is I would like to get back under 4 hours, for the marathon. Okay. My post-donation marathon best is right around 4 hours. I think I did Charlevoix in about 4:01 or 4:02, maybe in 20, I forget what year it was. Might have been, wasn't 20. Yeah, it's probably 2019 actually. And the next year. So yeah, and then just getting that marathon time down. Another bucket list thing for me is I got to get more into biking. I know that it helps me with running, and I have a history of biking. When I was a teenager, my dad took us, we biked across the whole United States. We did 2,700 miles actually from Washington State back to Michigan. And one of these days I would like to replicate that. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to start biking seriously again, road biking, and for sure, right, do some training. And I know that makes me a stronger runner when I do the biking. It, like everybody, for like you guys, it's a time thing, and biking is boring, That's just my opinion. But I mean, biking outside's okay. Biking indoors is. I've discovered though. What do you call it? Zwift.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's something that is interesting to me, and I don't have it, but I might end up, getting that. So yeah, another marathon, and then probably obviously Grand Rapids in October, and who knows in between there or after there. I really like Stony Creek over there. It's a simple, you run around in the Metro Park over there. If you've ever heard of that one, it's really easy. I can just get up in the morning and drive over there and run that. But yeah, maybe some trail marathons, maybe the Huff again in December. Mitch, are you planning on doing the Huff this year?
I haven't done it in a couple of years, actually. Just the way it falls between Christmas and New Year's, around Christmas, it hasn't been convenient the last couple of years for us. So I just haven't done it.
He didn't have it in 2022. He didn't have it last year.
Yeah, didn't have it. And I don't know. I mean, I've been, kind of like Tracy too. Things have evolved. Like 2019, I did 22 marathons or further in that year. And it's like I decided after that, it's like and I did my 100-miler in that year, that if it didn't excite me, I didn't want to do it. So I backed off a little bit, and I've been getting into like backpacking and stuff like that. So things are evolving for me. Like we're doing 2 states next weekend. That does excite me to do something dumb and crazy, but I've been kind of changing how I look at it. So the Huff hasn't come up on my radar to say like, oh, I have to do that again. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If somebody said they wanted to go, I might go, but I'm not that worried about it at the same time.
Yeah. Maybe I'll see you there. The other thing I've noticed is that there's been a definite significant increase in prices, for races.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I know you'll do a lot of like where you pace and, you get an entry or whatever, which is smart. I mean, that's a really smart thing to do. But I'm sorry, but paying, 120, 140, 150 and more to run a marathon anymore is, I don't know, it's getting kind of old, that part of it. I want to say one more thing. Can I back up 1 second? My
Sure.
wife, the night before donation was our anniversary. They had moved our date. I forgot to say this, and she'll probably kill me if I don't mention this. So we spent that night. Tracy remembers what it's like the night before you donate. You have to get cleaned out, okay, without going into detail, right? So they give you a what's it called, magnesium citrate.
Yeah.
And you have to drink it. Yeah. And so, anyways, that was how I spent my whateverth wedding anniversary it was that night. And then my son was with us. And then the next morning you report bright and early for more checkups and everything. And then you go into surgery. And that was on, like I say, July 13th. So I just wanted to thank her for putting up with that and giving up our wedding anniversary to be with me and support me the night before the surgery.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, hey, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for sharing. And as we get ready to wrap up, I do want to just ask Tracy, what's on the kidney donor athletes future or horizon? Anything happening there? Just continued support for people? Anything new coming? Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. So they're putting together a lot of events, and I say they because I stepped back from the leadership team because I wanted to go back to doing just the stuff I love and let other people make the decisions and do the vision and do the planning. So like I have my perfect role with them right now, but in terms of the board, they're really doing a lot for planning really cool events. And so doing Kilimanjaro last year, which was so successful and so fun, they're doing a lot more things like that. So they're doing a Guatemala, like a multi-peak climb this December. So they've got a group of maybe 17 or 19 donors doing that. And it's led by a donor who's on the board. They're doing Kilimanjaro again next year. That's going to be an annual thing that they do. And so lots of things like that. And then they're also doing a new program where it's called a first event back. So they'll actually give you a scholarship for your first event of whatever kind post donation. And you get a t-shirt and, you post about being a donor and doing this. And so these fun kind of programs like that are great experiences for people that are donors and also great reference points for people to just get in front of people who don't know about donation and they're not sure, and to see people just like them out doing really cool stuff, thriving with one kidney. So they're finding a lot of different ways to show what that looks like for people. And I'm so excited to see what happens too. And the fact that I'm not in the driver's seat and I can kind of relax a bit and be a proactive community member feels really good because I believe so much in what KDA is doing and just the community that it's brought together. Like, Pete, we wouldn't even know each other if it wasn't for that. And there's so many people that are just, donors are just the most phenomenal humans. They're so giving and they're approachable and just it doesn't feel like there's ego in the game. It's just a thing that I felt compelled to do for a stranger or for a loved one or whatever. And it's such an awesome way to connect with another person. And like, Pete, we've never been together in person, but I'm sure it'd be awesome. It's a fantastic connection to have with other people that I'm so grateful for.
And I just want to thank you for what you do for us donors and who happen to also be athletes. It's to me, it's a miraculous. It all comes from God for me. That this is even possible, that these miracles. I think if I'm not mistaken, the first time a kidney was ever transplanted was only goes back to like the 1940s or something like that, right? And another fun statistic is, living donors, it has a higher success rate, right? I mean, as compared to a cadaver donation, right?
Yeah.
And it happens something like 6,000 times a year in the United States alone, right? And people do this for no incentive at all, like you especially, right? A lot of times it's obviously to help a loved one, to save their life, right? But the altruistic thing is more common than you would think, right? Why do people do this? It's just so inspiring and so amazing. And that's what the stories are all about on your website. There's 100,000 people right now waiting for a kidney in the United States. I don't want to make this like a PSA or something.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask that actually.
Right. So like people that are in an end stage where they're dire, and it's like dozens of people die every day because their kidneys fail. Right. And I mean, I have an uncle right now, and he doesn't want a kidney. Right. He's just doing dialysis, and he's in the, getting to be into the end stage, but people who do want one, there's like 100,000. Yeah. So
yeah, and that 100,000, I want to chime in real quick there. The 100,000, those are people that need a kidney that are approved to receive one. There's so many more than that they need a kidney, but they're not yet approved by their transplant team or whatever to be eligible to have one. I actually have a family member right now who's in that situation. He just had emergency surgery yesterday, not a donation, but complications, and he's 29, but he's not in a state where he can even receive one. So he's the 100,000 plus him and so many others just like him. So it's huge, the amount of people that need kidneys.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I have heard is these, let's just say the 100,000 just for simple, math here, but like there's 100,000 people, and ultimately, however many millions of people are in the United States alone, we could literally knock this out and it would have little to no impact on anybody.
100%.
I would agree with that.
A kidney surplus. Yeah. It's just people don't know what's possible.
Right. If you found 100,000 healthy people, right? Like Tracy here, right? 100,000 runners. Okay. Yes, we could wipe the list out clean. We could go to zero, like in a year.
And it would have no impact. That's the thing I'm looking at. Like you think about I think some of the barrier is just knowing, like I didn't know like that I could donate a kidney and it would ultimately 3 months later I could run another marathon and continue on and I'm good to go. And to think of I don't know what you said, Pete, but I think you said how many people are dying daily or yearly or whatever. It's a lot. It's too many. When you have the knowledge that you can do this and not be impacted essentially. So I think that is awesome to bring up, and I'm glad you guys mentioned that because it ultimately, the more we understand and know about this, the more likely you have people that will get involved and donate. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys ultimately just for sharing your stories for what got you into it and post donation. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This has been really fun. And Pete, it's great to see you too.
It was very nice to meet you, Tracy, finally, in person or on Zoom here. And maybe someday we'll run into each other. Maybe I'll, be out in Oregon on running on a trail and randomly pass you by, and I'll say, hey, that's Tracy, right?
I love that.
You never know. But Mitch and Lewis, this podcast, we're gonna turbocharge this thing, right? It is a great idea. I don't know really of any other running podcast other than I Don't Know Running. I love the title. I love the humble approach. When it comes to humility, listen to this. So my 100th marathon, of my life was January, groundhog of the year after my donation. So it was January 2019. So I'm all like, I brought my son with me, and I'm gonna do my 100th marathon, and everything. I mean, I didn't wear anything that said that or whatever, right? It's really just me and my son, okay? And I get in line for the porta potty before the race started, and Mitch probably knows who this guy is, or maybe you do, Lewis, too. But he's got a tag on. His bib says 200 on it.
Oh, it's Brian.
That's why I figured it was Brian.
And he, that same day, I'm running my 100th, coming off a kidney donation 6 months earlier, whatever. This dude's doing his 200th, right? They had a big cake for him in the tent and everything, and his friends were all partying with them. And I'm like, see, that's God's way of keeping you humble right there. It's like, so what? You did your 100th and you donated a kidney. Big deal. This dude did 200.
But, I think that's perfect. But all of our stories are our own stories, right? Your 100th is no less than his 200th. And I just think that our stories are our stories. And I love that part. It wouldn't matter if it was your first. I love your first marathon too. So pacing last week, we had 5 or 6 people we ran with at different times in the race because they kind of show up and disappear and show up. But we had at least 5 or 6 first timers, that were running, and it's just like, remember your first marathon, remember your first 10 miles. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us on the podcast, and I wish you both the best. And I will have links to KDA, the Kidney Donor Athletes website. I'll have links to Pete's story specifically in that, and I'm guessing, Tracy, your story is in there as well. But basically what you do is you go to this website, and I actually went there and just searched Pete. I don't even know if I need the last name, but anyway, I just searched Pete and found his story, and I started reading on it, and I think I saw it's interesting, I saw like a shirt, like I donated my kidney somewhere or something like that in that story. So it is really neat to just go in there and kind of read some of these stories, and I can't imagine the support that now, especially, how many years has it been? 6 years? Has it been 6 years, Tracy?
Almost 6.
Almost 6 that this has been going, and like I said, the hundreds or whatever stories in there, and now the community that has been built through this to help support people. And my only hope would be, going forward, that there are hundreds of thousands more that can jump into this and basically wipe out that issue that is a real issue and something that can be taken care of so simply. And I mean, I don't want to say the process is simple. It is obviously surgery and all that, but the after effects is next to nothing. Stop taking Advil, whatever, and move on. So, and again, I don't want to downplay anybody's story of having donated. It's amazing. But with hundreds of thousands of people needing a kidney, that's it could be wiped out. So thank you guys so much for joining us on the podcast. Appreciate that. And Mitch, any final comments as we wrap up?
Nope, I'm good. The only thing I was going to say is my Oregon race was Crater Lake Marathon. So that it's beautiful out there.
It really is, yeah.
Super. Well, check us out on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube now. Check us out. Send us an email at idon'tknowrunning@gmail.com if you have any comments or want to share your story. And get a hold of Tracy at the kidneydonor-athletes.org. kidneydonor-athletes.org. And we'll have links to that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to them and get some support. And hopefully something is generated from this. And with that, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the I Don't Know Running podcast. Be sure to tune in next time as we share more about what we just don't know.
Until then, happy running.